Chapter 16, Iseult-Maya, the Dance of Illusion. At its best, romantic love is the highest road to a double revelation. It leads us past the literalism and materialism of the Western mind and brings us face to face with the symbolic life. It opens our eyes to the meaning of human love. But at its worst, romantic love becomes a cycle of illusion that wastes our lives and distorts our loves instead of aiding them. This two-edgedness of romantic love, which serves us if we live it correctly but destroys us if we don't, reflects the two-sidedness of anima. She can be Iseult, queen of the inner world, who leads us to our deepest inner selves, or she can be Maya, the goddess of illusion. In one role, she serves life and gives it meaning, but her other face is terrible. She rips to shreds the fabric of ordinary life. She beguiles us away from all reality and turns our attempts at love into a perpetual dance of illusion. We have just seen Tristan and Iseult in that dance of anima, dancing steps we all know well. It is time to remember how Jung spoke of the two faces of Iseult. The withdrawal of projections makes the anima what she originally was, an archetypal image, which, in its right place, functions to the advantage of the individual. Interposed between the ego and the world, she acts like an ever-changing Shakti, who weaves the veil of Maya and dances the illusion of existence. But, functioning between the ego and the unconscious, the anima becomes the matrix of all the divine and semi-divine figures, from the pagan goddess to the virgin, from the messenger of the Holy Grail to the saint. Jung, Psychology of the Transference, paragraph 504. Placed between my ego and the unconscious, my soul opens the way to God. She makes a spiritual life possible for me. Imported into my personal relations with people, she turns them into illusions. She casts the spell of Maya. In Hindu myth, Maya is the goddess who dances the dance of illusion, weaving a gossamer veil that hangs between humanity and reality, distorting our vision of what is. Often it is said that the purpose of yogic practice is to see through the veil of Maya. As our myth nears its end, that veil slips over Tristan's eyes. Maya casts her spell over him. It is no longer Iseult inspiring him, but Maya, keeping him in a perpetual dream. His feet never touch the ground. He sighs, he longs, he wanders back and forth between Carhacks and Cornwall in a delirium, a virtual madness. Nothing touches him, nothing interests him, except the image of Iseult that he carries in his mind. Her image obsesses him, but it no longer serves life. It leads toward nothing. He is lost in a fantasy that brings him no closer to the inner world, yet cuts him off from the outer world of his friends, his wife, his physical life. For the rest of his days he wanders in Maya's dream, dead to all else, dancing distractedly to music that he alone hears from a realm no one else can see. Maya is illusion, the distortion of reality, the loss of reality. Our story tells us that romantic love is afflicted with illusion. A man wakes up to his illusion when it suddenly dawns on him that the woman he is in love with will not, cannot, solve all the problems and make his life blissful with no further effort on his part. His wife awakens to her illusion when she sees that he is someone different from the man she thought she was marrying, and worse, that he is often insensitive and thoughtless, just like all other men. She hadn't seen the man. She'd seen her illusion. But where do these illusions come from? Many Hindus, like some Christians, believe that the physical world around us is the illusory world, that only the spiritual world is real. Most Westerners, though, believe that the inner spiritual world is the illusion, that only the physical world is real. But the illusion is neither the inner world of psyche nor the external physical world. Illusion is a distorted relationship between inner and outer. We give birth to illusion by superimposing our inner world of images, our continuous stream of fantasy, on the external world and the people who live there. We see the physical world colored and distorted through the film of our inner images. Thus, as St. Paul said, now we see through a glass darkly. The physical world is true and real. The inner world is also true and real. It is when we muddle them, when we fail to live the inner world as symbol, when we try to locate it in literal people, that the illusory world is created. The illusory world is the projected world, which so distorts both inner and outer that we can see neither as it is. When a man experiences a fantasy of ultimate peace and wholeness, he needs to understand his fantasy as a statement of what he can achieve within himself. But usually he will project his image of paradise on a woman, unconsciously asking her to fulfill it, to bring it into some physical actuality, to deliver it to him. In that instant, he creates the illusion. He sees through a glass, darkly. He no longer sees his external wife as she is, and he doesn't yet see his inner vision as the reality that it is. Both worlds are mangled. Both worlds are dishonored. Anima becomes Maya, not because there is something wrong with Anima, but because of what men do with her. Let us remember that what we call Anima is a man's soul. My soul is not some amorphous, sentimental notion invented for love letters. My soul is a specific part of me with a specific function. It is a psychological organ that performs a life-giving role within this strange and wonderful combination of psychological and physical parts that make up a human being. The soul of a human being is designed, in a sense, to enable him or her to see a different side of the cosmos, to experience a life and a perspective that is wide and vast. The soul can only do what it is designed to do, what is in its nature. It can only lead us toward the infinite. If we put our soul into finite situations, it keeps leading us toward the infinite. If we put our soul into personal situations, it keeps pulling us towards the impersonal and the transpersonal. This is how Iseult becomes Maya. It is not because there is mischief in the soul, but because the soul is so good, so persistent in pulling us towards its side of existence, the side that resonates with infinity. When a man invests his soul into his personal situations, she goes on doing what she must do. She pulls the personal situation toward the archetypal. She, quote, infinitizes his finite situation. She converts it into an allegory of great archetypal themes, eternal questions, holy quests, and crusades. We see men put their souls into all sorts of finite human situations. We say that he is blowing it all out of proportion, or making a federal case of it, or making a mountain out of a molehill. In such earthly ways we speak of inflation, the swelling up of finite situation because a man put his soul into it, and she, in accord with her nature, infinitized it. Thus, Iseult becomes Maya. Anima is changed into the inadvertent author of illusion. Anima's nature is to create the fantasy side of life. When we experience her fantasy consciously on the symbolic level, she creates a world of splendor, a view of the timeless universe that lifts us out of the bounds of personal life and acquaints us with what is universal and eternal. We see ourselves and our lives in a different perspective. We see ourselves in the flow of the ages, and we see that our lives are individual manifestations of what has always been and will always be. My soul is that part of me that strives always to renew my awareness of what is universal, of the great motifs in life that are outside all personal matters and transcend all personal lives, yet are common to all. Our souls are pointed toward God, like sunflowers that only face the light. They see only the archetypes, the inner gods, the great leitmotifs behind all individual existences. This is why Anima puts such a strain on personal life. Anima is not interested in the individual idiosyncrasies of my personal daily life, whether my bank account is balanced, whether my relationships with people are clear, whether the lawn is mowed. Her eyes are on the cosmic accounts, balanced in the scales of Libra, where the only issue is my inner wholeness. Her values are not human values, but cosmic values. Her only interest is whether I live and experience every great theme of human existence that is contained in potential within my being. Each man's soul demands that he be and that he live every great archetypal role in the collective unconscious, the betrayer and the betrayed, the lover and the beloved, the oppressor and the victim, the noble and the ignoble, the conqueror and the conquered, the warrior and the priest, the man of sorrows and the self-reborn. When a man tries to live his soul within his finite marriage with a woman, his soul puffs up and distorts his view of both wife and marriage. His soul keeps trying to pull the relationship toward the infinite, making it into an allegory of love, death, and paradise lost, convert this human marriage into a huge, sweeping archetypal drama. That drama goes on inside him, anyway, all the time, at the fantasy level. If he could learn to keep it there, to see it as symbol and experience it as symbol, then he could live correctly with his soul. He could follow his soul in his inner life toward the infinite, but stay within the limits of the finite in his relationship with his wife. In his dream work, his active imagination, his meditation, he would follow his soul off to Camelot and joust with the knights. He would quest for the Holy Grail, fight with dragons and Morholts, rescue maidens, heal the sick, and find healing for his own wounds. He would betray and be betrayed. He would sin and repent. He would take revenge. He would live out all the archetypes in the collective unconscious, but in symbolic form. He would keep the infinite contained in symbol, the one vessel that can hold it without cracking and without destroying his personal life. From a symbolic journey toward the infinite, following his soul in imagination and dream, a man could find his way back to the finite world. There he would find his home, his wife, his relationship intact. There he would consent to deal with the finite questions and limits of ordinary life. He would learn not to fight with his wife because he is angry with characteristics within himself, or because his soul wants to lead him to battle with inner villains. He would learn to see his fantasy as his own inner event and to experience it on that interior level. A man who puts anima into his marriage is putting his fantasy into his marriage and turning it into a series of archetypal scenes, a playground for the impersonal forces of the unconscious. His wife, if she is not joining the fantasy, begins to realize that she is not so much a wife as a supporting cast in a gigantic stage play, the cosmic drama that goes on forever in her husband's inner world. Okay, the next couple paragraphs are a quote from Hillman, which I'm going to assume is James Hillman and not his son Lawrence Hillman, called Anima, pages 111 to 112. Anima, as function of relationship, is far indeed from relatedness. It seems odd that anima could ever have been considered as a help in human relationship. In each of her classical shapes, she is a non-human or half-human creature, and her effects lead us away from the individually human situation. She makes moods, distortions, illusions, which serve human relatedness only when the persons concerned share the same mood or fantasy. If we want to relate, then anima be gone. Nothing disturbs more the accurate feeling between persons than anima. The relatedness of George and Mary depends upon the specific natures of George and Mary. Their relatedness reflects their living process of feeling, and their relationship is unique to them. If their relationship were anima determined, it would become a reflection less of them and more of an archetypal fantasy playing through them. Then they become collective actors, performing an unconscious fantasy, i.e., lovers, quarrelers, cohorts. She does not lead into human feeling, but out of it. As the function that relates conscious and unconscious, she occludes conscious feeling, making it unconscious and making the human inhuman. She puts other things in mind than the human world. In the instant that a man falls in love, he goes beyond love itself and begins the worship of his soul in woman. Anima immediately begins to blow his human relationship out of human proportion. Love is not just love, but a divine ecstasy. Every sight of the beloved brings not quite a happiness, but unearthly bliss. But then, as soul swings her vision to the negative side of the archetypes, every mood becomes the occasion for a fight or a separation. Every slight is the ultimate betrayal. Every glance at another man or woman justifies blasts of anger and jealousy. Every ordinary event becomes part of a huge drama. Anima can only lead men away from finite ordinariness and into that universal play. Strangely, this is the point where a man feels most unique, most individual, as though this has never happened to anyone other than himself and he is beloved. In fact, it is at this point that he loses his individuality. The lovers lose their individual identities. They are Tristan and Iseult, or Romeo and Juliet, actors in a collective play where the script is predetermined and the scenes are known beforehand. It is precisely because one has ceased to be oneself and has become a player in a universal drama that one feels so intense, so out of the ordinary, and at first so wonderful. But like Semele, I am surprised I don't know how to say that word out loud, who demanded of Zeus that he appear to her in all the power of his godhead, human relationships simply incinerate, burn out, when they are subjected to the impersonal, divine power contained in the anima and animus projections. People often say that they are burned out by a relationship. It is literally true. They are so exhausted by the sheer intensity of romantic love as we try to live it, but by the ecstasies and battles, the partings and reconciliations, that there is finally nothing left, neither life force nor goodwill nor affection, with which to love and companion someone on a human level. It is no wonder that many people, finding themselves caught in the dance of illusion, become embittered. They decide that romantic love is a treadmill, a meaningless sham, and they give up on love. But there is a better way to leave the dance. One needs to graduate out of the dance by finding the truth that is marked by the illusion. If we look diligently for that hidden truth, we come full circle. We find ourselves back on the bark with Tristan, Iseult, and the love potion. We are asking once again why the splendor of God comes to us, not through our religious lives, but in our loves, our projections, our illusions. The answer is startling. It is because we do not have religious lives, and the divine realm has to find us, even trap us where it can. We have churches, we have dogma, we have doctrine, we have opinions, we have groups and meetings, but we do not have religious lives because we pay little attention to our souls or to our inner lives. Tristan shows us ourselves. Tristan never seeks Iseult the Fair consciously to follow her to a spiritual life. He never gives any voluntary heed to his soul, but his soul finds him, against his will, in the love potion, and then in the dance of illusion. We also have paid no heed to our souls. We have not sought our souls and our God consciously or voluntarily. But our souls have found us and snared us through our projections, our illusions. A man drinks the potion, he stares at Iseult, seeing not Iseult but Maya, and imperceptibly, without his knowledge, his feet move, and he joins the dance. If a man would evolve out of illusion and pull illusion out of his loves, there is one direct act of will required. Merely to decide to give up his projections as a heroic discipline won't work. He can only pull anima out of his marriage, relationships, and personal lives when he has affirmatively provided a place for her on another level in his life. The inner act required of a Western man is to affirm his own religious nature. It means to affirm seriously that the images and feelings that flow out of him in dream, fantasy, and imagination are the stuff of the divine realm, a separate order of reality distinct from his physical and personal life, but equally real and equally important. He must be willing to take those images seriously, to spend time with them, to see them as powers of great importance within himself, inhabitants of a spiritual realm that his soul transmits to him in symbol. One may do this by traditional religious practice, by contemplative meditation, by yoga, by fantasy and dream work, or by Jung's active imagination. But it requires an inner practice, an affirmative soul life, actually lived day by day. If a man does this, he begins to learn the difference between inner and outer, between what must be lived symbolically and what must be lived physically. He projects, but he learns what to do with his projection. He is not overwhelmed and determined by his projections. He suffers, but his suffering produces something, evolution and change rather than vain repetition of the dance. His soul, permitted at last to live and infinitize in her natural element, symbol, moves less and less into his personal, finite life. She no longer needs to snare him by inflating his human love, his relationships, or his marriage. There is a differentiation, an evolution, and a consciousness that comes to the man who will pay the price. For him, the dance quietly fades, changed into the symbolic life that it masked. Maya lifts her veil, and his vision clears. He learns what it is to be mortal man with an immortal soul.